What is good? We're back. And we got a fresh crack. Weak. Oh my God, King, a second crack from the top row. All right. So we got a little Dynasty market evaluation going on here. We got our first round of ADP for your pleasure. So we're going to talk about who's skyrocketing and plummeting up and down this ADP for your pleasure, of course. All right, so we're going to take you through the first, 10, 12 rounds-ish, if we get there. We'll see. Kind of round by round, what we like, what we don't like, some ideas of startup versus trade values, all that jazz in a nice little comfy 40-minute chair for your pleasure.
Which, if you're not sure, this ADP, we've been compiling it all January. 9 mocks to be exact. And if you want to get into these mocks, head over to the Patreons. They get first dibs. And then if you don't want to give us the $5 or $10 holla, hit the free Discords, and then they get second dibs. So join these mocks, help us make this ADP up, and we'll have a blast.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff over there. So make sure you go check that out. All right. So round one.
Fight.
I don't think we're going to spend a whole lot of time here. Got Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Brock Bowers, Bijan, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm not going to get too critical here, really, through the top of the first down into the first couple picks of the second, right? Is what it is. You got any speak now or forever hold your peace, Doug?
Nothing crazy. Pretty chalk for me. I do like if for some reason you could get to the end and you could take Bijan and Gibbs back to back. Ooh, that is salty. But outside of that, pretty chalk.
Yeah, no, like I said, how you want to play that turn, whatever is your preference. But no real notes on the first, 14, 15 picks for me.
Jaden Daniels over Patrick Mahomes?
I'm probably still taking Pat, but, I get it. If you want to take, I'd probably, I guess that's fine for me at this point.
Yeah. It's a preference of quarterback at the top for me. So,
right. I'm not going hard and fast. There's so much legs involved with Jaden Daniels at this point that.
And he just did so good.
Right. I mean, clearly, there's no chance that there could be regression.
Dude, he's playing VR. You see that shit?
Yeah.
He's taking 250 reps every morning.
Yeah.
Some new shit.
Been awesome. And I can't.
Demanded the team do it. He wouldn't go to him.
Yeah. Hey, I love it. Fun first round. Not upset about anything there. Let's move on to the second round. 2-1, you got Puka, Gibbs, Neighbors, Stroud, Herbert, Caleb, Brian Thomas, Nico, McBride, Jordan Love, Marv, and Breece Hall rounding out the second round here. Again, not a whole lot of notes for me through these top guys, right? I think as a whole, for the most part, the community kind of has figured out the top guys, really. They know who they are, what order they go in. Is semantics. It can slide a few picks in either direction and say, oh man, this is a really good value. Like Burrow last year slid and was a really good value, right? Is CJ Stroud the Burrow of this year? Who's to say? Herbert, for me, stays a pretty good value there. And I love the idea of Caleb Williams here at 206, right? I have no problem drafting that. Now we got Ben Johnson there. I'm excited about that. You get great wide receiver choices here. So what are your thoughts here on the second round, Doug?
Yeah, nothing crazy, especially at the top. Once you kind of get towards the end, I think I kind of see a slight tier jump where a lot of guys from the top of the third kind of get mixed in. So I could see people like, and we'll get to it obviously, but Kyler, Drake May, London kind of jumping into round 2. At some point. But again, I just kind of think it speaks to the talent that's really in the range. If I'm sitting in the middle of the second, I'm not opposed to moving to the top of the third, moving back a couple spots if somebody has a preference and grabbing some extra draft capital. But I think at the end of the day, to your point, I think it's really pretty much the same. So, yep.
Yeah, no, I think there's, depending on how your draft's going in these first 2 rounds, there's a lot of good talent and moving around if possible in your startup. Obviously, we're doing mocks. Could be very advantageous to really gaining and gathering steam. And we'll get to points in this draft where there's definitely some lower chunks that I might like better than the higher chunks. I don't think I have a terrible amount of them here. Like I said, if a board starts breaking a certain way, I could really see a trade back being advantageous through the first 2 rounds. Like you said, you found you like that. If you could move to the middle second to the bottom second, top third, you feel pretty comfortable with that because you see kind of a good group of talent there, right?
Yep, absolutely.
All right, let's roll through the third round here. We got Kyler kicking it off. We got AJ Brown, Drake London, Drake May, Garrett Wilson, Saquon Barkley, Anthony Richardson, Etienne, JSN, Lad McConkey, Sam Laporta, and Rashee Rice wrapping up the third round. Any big pockets here that you would like to see move around a little bit in your mind here, Doug?
This is the round where I really see for me, a definitive tier break. I would say it's probably Garrett Wilson. If you wanted to throw Saquon in there, I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I do think Rashee Rice is going to eventually bump into that first part of this third round. If he gets a full season of health and no legal problems, then he'll definitely be at worst the second round. But this is kind of where I kind of see that tier break. And, I probably wouldn't have Richardson this high as a personal preference. I feel like somebody's rolling the dice on that. But at the same time, you're going to go get your quarterback. And if that's your man, that's your man. I'm not opposed to that. I do like the receivers at the tail end of this round. But again, I think there's a tier break for me. I think it's the Garrett Wilson, Saquon, for me, Chuck Rice up in there, and then we're good.
Yeah, I mean, Big Co had mentioned that he thought that the Rice discount was pretty much dried up at this point, and I still think there is some discount there. I think if he was doing what he was doing, we'd see end of the first round Rashee Rice right now. Any first for Rashee Rice was maybe the worst thing I heard all in season from some people. So any firsts basically outside of maybe the 101 and maybe like the 2 and 3, I would probably trade for Rashee Rice at this point. I think he's that good.
The 2.
Yeah, I mean, I like Caleb Johnson and Amarion Hampton a good bit, and Travion's creeping into there for me. But I for sure would take him as the first receiver off the board as for the rookies.
Yeah.
So I like that. I think JSN and Lad maybe a little too high, but maybe that's just last year's creeping in of like that was 6th and 7th round gold for us last year.
Yeah,
and it's hard to say, oh, now I'm in the back of the third, I got to take these guys. This sucks. Not that I don't think that they can score those points that are in that area. I Rashee above them. Laporta, you're kind of questionable about what's going on right now. Probably JT above them, right?
Agreed. I think Laporta is definitely probably going to eventually push down a little bit. I think Odunze will eventually push up a little bit into the third round. Those are really kind of the big movers that I would see between the rounds. But
JT above who?
Above JSN and Lad.
Really?
Yeah. I think so.
Nobody's going to like that.
No, probably not.
Nobody's going to like that. Hit us in the comments. Hit us down in those comments.
I'm just saying, like, if I'm drafting, I'm probably looking at JT before I'm looking at JSN and Lad. And again, maybe that's as we reprogram our brains to where this is, because I'm maybe still a little stuck in what the value, screaming how much I love these guys. And now it's hard to pull that trigger. So we'll see. Garrett Wilson at 305 was going to make the list in the other show we just did for buys at every position. He's at 305. I think you kind of mentioned that's maybe a tier break.
Yeah.
Out of some of the elites, and Barkley could potentially be in there for sure. But I find myself as Garrett Wilson being the guy I keep smashing when I'm in the middle of that third. And he just kind of hangs around. And for some, look, is Garrett Wilson going to be super duper cheap? No, but I mean, it seems like, maybe a first round pick might get you Garrett Wilson here. Or adding a little something to it. And for some reason, he had his best year he's ever had, and people still don't like him.
Yeah. Everybody's so focused on the environment.
Yeah. And hey, we don't know exactly what that's going to be. So that, when that could be a little bit of a downer, and that could be part of what's weighing in why somebody wants to get rid of him. So I'll take him. I'm going to bet on the good player. He's still been good in that bad environment.
1-2.
Pretty much. Again, probably would take a couple of the running backs first, and then again would probably be my first wide receiver off the board. I don't know if you feel that strongly about Garrett Wilson, Doug.
Oh yeah. I mean, if I'm starting running back, or even tight end running back, in some form or fashion in the first 2, and Garrett Wilson's my third, I'm just fine with that, because I'm going to be backing him up with another good receiver in the 4th, and we're off to the races. So I have no problems with that. And I mean, he's a talent. and we always say buy the talent, right? So Garrett Wilson III is a great value.
Yeah. And then Richardson at 307, it seems a little high. You bump that down. Hey, maybe if I bought a quarterback already and then I could buy a Rich in like the late fourth and then come back with a Trevor Lawrence in the fifth or a Dak in the fifth. And hey, I spent three high picks on a quarterback. But if Anthony Richardson takes off to the level that he could take off, I mean, he's going to rip the doors off of fantasy point scoring, and you could probably end up getting whatever you want with him if we repair the damaged reputation there with him currently. When the fantasy points are being scored, that can kind of fix all wounds, heal all scars, if you will.
Yeah, he's the ultimate boomer bust
for sure. So yeah, that's probably a little risky for me right there at that point. But once he falls down and we're past Kyron and Taylor and Brock and Nix, I could see saying, hey, I could take a shot on gamble on Richardson and see if Goff, Penix, Baker, Lawrence, Dak falls again. But it feels like you do have to double click at some point here and squeeze the quarterback here. But it could be worth anything you want it to be worth really quickly.
Yep.
All right, let's roll through this fourth round here. We got JT, Kyron, Brock, Odunze, Bucky, Bo, Nix coming in at 406. T. Higgins, Baker, Chris Olave, Jalen Waddle at 410, Penix at 411, and Jared Goff at 412. What's your general overview on the fourth? I know you kind of had, maybe some of these risers.
Yeah.
Rome. I don't know. Is Nix going to rise?
Yeah, Nix will rise. I mean, I saw one draft last week, I think, where he went the beginning of the fifth, and that's just blowing my mind. I mean, he finished, I think, quarterback 10. Yeah. So I suspect we'll see Nix rise. I suspect we'll see Penix rise. With the Cohen news, I feel like we might see Baker fall a little bit just because of the unknown and the coaching change. Probably going to see Goff fall a little bit, which, rightfully so. But, I'm high on Rome Odunze. I think Odunze's probably going to go higher than this when it's all said and done. We'll see his final ADP before the season starts somewhere in the 3s. And, I just think there's a lot of unknowns with the coaching changes right now. So I could see him potentially leapfrogging over JSN, but we'll just see. We'll see what happens in
two Rome Odunze blurbs with Ben Johnson and his role in this offense, and he's moving up.
Yeah.
And are we worried about Bucky kind of moving forward here with unknown?
Yeah.
Or do we feel secure?
I feel good about Bucky. You're going to see him come down just a little bit.
Think so?
Yeah, I do. I think everybody that's going to be on Tampa is going to get a tick, right? Everybody's going to move a little bit down. I think everybody in Chicago is going to move a little bit up. So I think Bucky's fine. I don't have any issue where he's falling right now.
Yeah, this kind of end four is a little interesting. Here's Olave and Waddle, and I find myself probably drafting those guys a reasonable amount because they're guys who we've seen perform at high levels who just haven't done it in a minute. People are a little upset about it, so continue to stack those values for us. And then T comes up there at 407. Is there landing spots? I mean, we don't need to name any specific, but could T's value feel like it could go down anymore? Does that feel like it's kind of where it's going to be and then can only go up? Or what's your thoughts there?
I think it's definitely the latter. I think this is probably the basement of where you're going to see T. And then once he gets his final landing spot, the market will adjust appropriately. I really think that if he was going to go, I know you're not said specifics, but if he goes to, someplace like New England, I feel like that's pretty good. He's going to be paired with the quarterback, Josh McDaniels. I have zero issues with that, so I think you'll start to see him creep up a little bit. But right now, I just think the unknown's kind of suppressing his value.
I like it. Shout out to Big Co. T. Higgins doing his damn thing. Like to give Big Co his shouts outs.
What is Big Co?
He just was always hating. He was always hating on T. Higgins every time I brought him up on like a versus all throughout the summer. He's like, I'll take the other guy.
It's got to be a Clemson thing.
Yeah, it might be a little Clemson thing, but
like seeing Penix up here, but I would have to agree that we'll see some fall in Goff, and I wonder if Penix starts creeping up here a little bit, like Penix over Baker consistently in the next few mocks, maybe.
I'm not opposed to that at all. Knowing that the coaching change has just happened, I have no problem with that. I like Penix more than I like Baker, but
yeah, I mean,
that's an age thing.
What we just saw from Baker was absolutely outstanding, and early stuff from Penix was really good. So, whole offseason to prepare, being the number one, I think we'll see good things from Penix. I would assume that by now, this Bucs offensive situation between going through those last two coordinators and Baker being basically a wily veteran at this point.
Maybe it's not the coaches that are making Baker better. Maybe Baker's making the coaches better,
I'm saying like at least at a baseline, like if they can just keep some semblance of the system, like Baker has to know what works and what doesn't work at this point for him and for the guys surrounding him, I would assume. And, a veteran leader enough to come in here and help put together the offense with whatever the new OC is.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So if there is a dip in Baker, I may be buying because I'm pretty confident in Baker at this point because Baker's confident in Baker. And, we've seen that be a detriment to him, but when he's confident and the play is matching the confidence that he's exuding, I think that's a tough guy to break. And they've just been such a tough team to play. I mean, have they been winning tremendously at a great rip where people are like, oh, we're super concerned about Tampa? No, but Tampa can beat anybody, anywhere, anytime, really. You know?
I mean, they did. And, and you don't have to worry about if Godwin exits because Godwin was basically a non-factor for him this year, right? And then he goes out and has the season that he does.
Right.
So McMillan stepped up as the number 2.
Insert McMillan,
baby.
It's a wide receiver system.
It's good players, baby.
Down there.
Good players. So 5th round, we got Jacobs, Cook, Christian McCaffrey, Trevor Lawrence, Dak Prescott, Devonta Smith, Zay Flowers, Brandon Ayuk, George Pickens at 5'6" through 5'09", and then McCarthy 5'10", Bryce Young 5'11", Kenny Walker 5'12", rounding out round 5. First impressions of round 5 here.
A little too high on JJ and Kenny Walker for me. Yeah. I feel like the 5th is really kind of when I'm in a draft. This is where I start moving around the board a lot. There's a nice glut of players that we'll see coming up, but sometimes, the price to move up is better because you're kind of out of that elite area, but you also need to realize that right now is also where the starting caliber of quarterbacks kind of starts to end. So it's kind of both ways. It's, if you're good at quarterback and you've done your work early in the draft, it's not really a concern. And there will be people that will pay the premium to move up into this area to get their quarterback in the 5th. Again, this is really where I start kind of moving around the board. I'm
with you there. I could see moving backwards here at this point. I would agree. I would say JJ probably a little too high for my taste there. I would say like JJ plus a piece to get me to Penix here would be something I'd be interested in.
Absolutely.
Right. I would like to see what that cost would be. And it's, I think JJ can be fine. It's just very unknown. We haven't even seen like a little bit of it in game time. And is it Sam Darnold on a 1-year kind of deal? Is it Daniel Jones is the starter to start the season next year? A lot of ifs, ands, and maybes. It just seems like for McCarthy to be the sure thing here and being in the 5th round. And, kind of to your point of saying we're getting into like a weird spot here in the draft. And maybe that's why people start drafting McCarthy. But it does seem like there's an awful lot of confidence in McCarthy at this point.
Yeah. Yep. I agree because we didn't hear the noise of Darnold sticking around after the last 2 games. So,
right. And we talked about Bryce on the last show. Make sure you go check that out. But Bryce coming in at 5'11", I like that. I feel pretty good about that. I've been rekindling my flame for Ayuk at 5'08". That feels all right to me. Devonta Smith at 5'06". I don't know why, but I'll press the button. I feel good about it, but not as great as I did. But I like Flowers and Ayuk and Smith. I don't have a problem with any of those guys, and I still love Pickens. It's Pickens versus Pickens, though.
Always.
And what's the quarterback situation going to be in there next year? We have absolutely no idea. Seems like it could be Russ. Seems like some early indications might be, hey, they're going to at least bring Fields back and then see what else happens.
Yeah.
So
I'd be surprised if it's Russ from what I'm hearing. I've heard that, obviously he didn't have the great rapport towards the end of the season with Arthur. And then now that Pete's over in Vegas, maybe reuniting with Pete.
Maybe that would be awful for Brock Bowers. Pete and Russ hate tight ends. They don't like them at all.
Shout out Jacoby Myers.
I don't mind Kenny Walker at this point. I feel like I'm starting to be void of talent a little bit, and I think he's a very good talent who just hasn't stayed on the field as much as we'd like him to see. Now, as we kind of get into the 6th round, you get Tyreek Hill, DJ Moore, Chase Brown, Xavier Worthy, Addison, TJ Hawkinson, Tua. There's kind of one of the last quarterbacks that you can get and feel good about. And then there's DK, Kincaid, Kittle, Jameson Williams, Chuba Hubbard. I don't know. I don't mind this round so much. I find myself as DK being the guy that really stands out in here for me.
Yep.
What's your thoughts on this kind of round? I mean, Chase Brown feels like he could end up being a little higher than this, right?
Yep. And that's kind of where I was coming with Kenny. I feel like Kenny Walker's just a little bit high for me because I really like Chase Brown. I don't think Chuba would step over Kenny, right? I don't think that that's a move that would happen, and maybe it's just Chase Brown's a little too low for me. So maybe it's not an issue of Kenny Walker being too high in the 5th. Maybe it's just Chase Brown's just a little bit low for my liking. But I think you make a great point. I think the biggest person that sticks out in this round is definitely DK. I could see a case for Hawk moving up a little bit. I like him coming back a lot. And then
he to me feels like and Kittle has been elite production wise, but into the 30s, Hawk's not quite in there. So Kittle Hawkinson feels like one of like the last elite tight ends that you really feel super comfortable drafting.
Yep, absolutely. When I'm getting in a draft, and if I'm getting to the Hawkinson range where I'm starting to contemplate, and he always goes in front of me. So I'm obviously not taking him high enough, but at the same time, you're exactly right. He's the last of the elite for me.
And how about, you're a Chiefs guy. I find myself, I try to get like Xavier Worthy, DK Metcalf, and then Michael Pittman starts the next round. Chuba, those are kind of the guys. And we talked about Hawkinson. Those are like my 4-ish guys in this range that I look at. Chase Brown, I feel like is almost the 6'3", so he must be hanging around. I feel like he's almost always gone when I'm in this range. What's your thoughts on kind of that group and being the Chiefs guy? We could start with Xavier Worthy. Is this I'm interested and I'm buying, but what do you think?
I'm not as high on Worthy, to be honest. It just kind of comes from watching the Chiefs as much as I do, and just knowing obviously Kelsey's on the field, priority 1, right? And then when Rasheed comes back, priority 2. So I think it just comes down to volume for me with Worthy, and that's my concern. I think he's a great player. He's fantastic. He's electric. He's fun to watch. I'm glad he's on the Chiefs, all that fun stuff. But at the same time, I'm just concerned that the quantity of touches, whether it's, the little jet sweeps or the little outruns, I just don't think the quantity is going to be there, the volume. So that's my only concern with him. I'd rather have Jordan Addison over him. And that's saying something because Jordan Addison's the 3rd in Minnesota. But I also think they involve Jordan Addison a lot. And
Hawkinson being the other guy.
Exactly. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. If somebody wants to take Worthy, I have no problem. This is about the range that he should be going. I just don't find myself consistently taking him.
Yeah, I mean, if you bring Hollywood back maybe on another year, if you can get him cheaper, and you get Rice Hollywood, if Kelsey brings it back for another year, could be some volume issues. It did seem like Xavier was kind of carving out a role. So, I would wonder if the volume would focus down as things improve with the Chiefs offensive weapon wise. Right now, they're kind of void of that. So they're kind of maybe spreading it around, but who knows? You may know better than me in that regard. I would take Xavier Worthy over Addison there. DJ Moore is kind of interesting to me in this next role. We know how good of a receiver he is. And when they kind of got him going on like some underneath stuff and some shorter stuff, and then, took a shot here or there, but just getting the ball in his hands, he feels like he could be and I think he's still only 27, still could be a really good weapon there. So he's kind of interesting. I'm just not sure where he falls in my plan yet in 2025. How about Dalton Kincaid? What are we doing with Dalton Kincaid here in this next round of things? Because
he's kind of the wild card in this round for me, because I really want to believe. I really want to. I mean, going into this offseason or last offseason, I was a firm believer Kincaid's going to be getting the targets. Diggs is out, yada, yada, yada. The story that it went with Buffalo, right? And I just haven't really seen it come to fruition. And, I think Josh makes Josh plays, and Josh doesn't always rely on one person. And I think everybody kind of felt like Dalton Kincaid was going to be that person for Josh Allen. I'm not down on him, but I'm just probably not going to spend this draft capital on him. There's players around this area that I like a lot better, that I feel like at the end of the day, or for the game that we play, are going to put points on my team. So,
yeah, I mean, like I said, Chuba, DK, Addison, Hawkinson, I feel better about pulling the trigger on those guys, and I really want to keep believing in Dalton Kincaid. This was not a great year from him, and it's just there was like the volume, it was just up and down, and wasn't even in the ups wasn't as up as you'd like it to be. So I don't really know what to make of things on that, and I can't be mad at Buffalo because they're doing their thing and they're winning games. They're playing kind of mistake-free football. Josh Allen isn't being Superman per se. They're just kind of methodical at this point. Defense is playing well, spreading it around. Shakir seems to be like the guy at least every week that kind of seems to maintain some of the volume. So hard decisions on Kincaid. I'd be buying low if somebody's like out and has a much lower opinion on him than a 6th round sort of ADP here. So
yeah, I agree. There's tight ends later that I'd rather have and be able to take a better receiver or running back right now. For me, Kincaid's just kind of like a second coming of Kyle Pitts at this point, and that that just kind of scares me.
Yeah, and Kyle Pitts is in this next round. He's coming right up here. Unfortunately, what it looked like with Kyle Pitts, it kind of looked like an effort issue, which I don't think that's I don't think that's Kincaid's issue. So I don't really know what to make of Pitts. I like Penix being there. I like things kind of changing. There was a game in there where Pitts was very much alive with Michael Penix and cost me some money. That was a bummer. Kyle Pitts doesn't do anything all year long. Beats me up in a championship round with a touchdown at the end of the day and a couple big plays. So it's there when Pitts wants to give effort and do his thing. So maybe I'm completely off base here, but it just seemed like at times he was a little checked out, which I didn't see kind of coming from Pitts from a character standpoint. So don't love that. But I'm going to stop reading round by round here on this last little, couple minutes of this video here. But Pittman at 701 seems like a guy that I just keep clicking on. I know it wasn't everything that we wanted it to be from Pittman or the Colts or Anthony Richardson this year, and we like Downs, and Downs is coming up here, and I would definitely still take Downs. I'll take both of them. But we've seen Pittman be just a very good receiver throughout his entire career, and I just have a hard time believing that he's just dead and the Colts won't figure something out. He's paid with them. He had a broken back. I think it's spinal.
Right.
Through the season here, and my man just kept playing. So I love Pittman. I think Pittman's going to be just fine. He's certainly not at the age where he's so old. He's kind of in that middle of the weird age thing where 27-ish. But Pittman should have a good 5 years left of a very productive career. So I kind of really, really love this 7-1, and maybe it doesn't work out the best it's ever worked out this coming year, but I'm still okay with that. Like that's all right.
And he's never been a number one for your team, right? He's never finished as a one. He's never, you've never had him as your rock or your stud at receiver, but damn, he's been a good number two. He's been a high end number two, and it's been very productive. And this is you're buying him as what the third. So yeah.
What was 13? So right out of it, I thought he was close last year. So wide receiver 13 last year was right outside that one mark, or 2 years ago, rather. We're saying last year, but 2023. But he can do it, man. He's a good player. I like him. There's obviously been a lot of volume his way. I think between him and Downs, the volume is pretty much going to stay there unless they invite Tyler Warren into this trio of fun Colts lore here. So we shall see. Moving forward here, we talked about Travis Etienne in the last show, screaming by for me. I think his ADP might be lower, but every one of these mocks that I'm in, I get into the 7th round and I'm like, I can't not click Etienne here. Like, it's just like I try and I leave him go. He's in the 7th. I'm like, gotta take him. Gotta have him. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, I've had a couple startups in the last couple of weeks, and I get in there, and everybody just keeps passing on Etienne, and he just keeps falling and falling and falling. So it's just getting to the point where it's like, okay, I'm going to see how low is he actually going to go, and I'm getting him in the 8th and 9th in some places. It's crazy. Yeah. So you can tell what everybody thinks about Etienne right now, and we talked about, like you said in the last show, and screaming by, give them to me, all of them.
Yeah, coming up here on this run of players, I think there's a decent group of players that I don't mind if you did like a move back or two and picked up some more picks in this 7th, 8th, 9th, and we're gonna add rookies to this, so that'll even change a little bit more, so we can dissect that after rookies get added on the next time we do this. There'll be rookies in it, but some people love Keon Coleman. He's not my favorite, but I get it. I could have him on the queue here at this point. Sam Darnold obviously didn't finish strong, but he's gonna be like, he could very well be in Pittsburgh next year, right?
Sure.
He can land himself in a decent situation where you're like, hey, this isn't the worst, and he's at 708. Keon Coleman 710. Then Ricky Pearsall at 711, Godwin 712, Pacheco 801, like that. Judy 802, McMillan 803, Downs. We've been talking about him. David Montgomery at 805.
David.
Independence Day. So that was almost a whole round of players there that I kind of like in this area a good bit. And now maybe you don't love any or all or half of those guys, but I'm just kind of saying that there's an interesting group right here that Legette's at 8-10, a little further down. There's Joku, Tucker Kraft, Tracy, kind of coming up here down a few picks from where we just left off. So a bunch of, I think, valuable helping win type of players here that you can all kind of choose from. Is there any favorites that really stick out to you in that group that we just talked about?
I'm really big on Pearsall. I think that if Debo dips out, I feel like Pearsall is going to take the next step regardless. But I just want to see what his role is. I really like where Pearsall is coming in. And then, we talked about that, following it up with Juwan, right? If you were to able to grab Pearsall and Juwan and just kind of see what that stack's going to look like, probably guaranteeing yourself the number 2 in San Fran. I do like Legette. I like where he's fallen. Obviously, Jalen McMillan, my boy Ramondre, all the way down at 9. This kind of range, what you're talking about as far as this talent, this is kind of what I was talking about earlier when, I'm sitting in the mid-second and I don't mind moving back into like the beginning of the 3rd because I feel like that talent's kind of similar there. These are the round picks that I'm trying to acquire or at least get bumps up. So like if I'm in the middle end of the 2nd and I move back to like 3-2, I'm like, all right, pop me your 7th and I'll give you my 9th, 10th, something like that. But this is the rounds that I'm really targeting with getting that extra draft capital, whether it's just getting an extra pick or it's just bumping. Yeah, absolutely. And like we said, moving around in the 5th, this is another round. I'm trying to get back into the 7th or the 8th. So
yeah, no, I like Pacheco's really interesting at 18 here, or RB 18 rather. In the top of the 8th round, he suffered an injury that some guys have kind of almost taken a full year to recover from, or around that kind of similar-ish injury to really get the explosion and the feel back. And I feel like Pacheco is going to be a guy that is going to be very, very viable option in deals to get them done. And I really like the Pacheco value kind of right here at 801. And, like I said, all those guys we listed and just talked about, all guys that I've end up drafting and are in the queue early on for when we get into this range. So I like this in the way that kind of area is shaping up right in there.
Yep.
Let's,
I think Pacheco's a good call. I mean, he just came back. The only reason he came back early is because he wants to help the Chiefs, right? And 10, 12, 14 points a game, that's solid in the 8th round.
Yeah. So then we got Shakir at 903, one of my favorites on the board. He's in the queue early. You mentioned Ramondre at 906. Like that a lot. Tony Pollard, I like at 908. I mean, Sutton, if you want a little bit older guy who's just showed you that he can ball out with Knicks there.
Yep.
James Conner and J.K. Dobbins almost into the 10th round. Geno Smith, if you need another quarterback here a little late, it's kind of fun. And then we kind of start getting into some interesting spots. Matthew Stafford as well, say in 10th round with Geno. Some interesting guys in there. Tajay Spears could be a lot of fun. We talked about Ingram on the last show. But he's somebody that tight end wise, if I miss on the big dogs, I'm going to try to get Joku and Evan Ingram, Cade Otton, Cole Kmet, sprinkle in a little likely for your futures coming in here at, 11, 12. You could get you some likely, and you don't have to, you need another tight end to go with likely. He's not going to be your guy, I don't think, unless they do something crazy with Andrews, but I mean, I know this is blasphemous. And
they didn't already cut him.
Yeah. And you can, I'm not saying this because I think he is this guy, but I'm saying like he might be one of the closest things to Brock Bowers when he's on the field and getting the ball in his hands, as far as like just looking like a receiver with the ball in his hands.
Looking like a hoss.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like what we wanted Treylon Burks to be.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that was what was disappointing for the season for him was, we watched him in the season opener. I mean, looked dynamic, right? I mean, went for 6 or 7 catches. Yeah, dude. Almost had a second touchdown just with the toe. So like, I mean, he was dynamic, and then they just stopped using him. And that's what I didn't understand. But yeah, I'm with you. He's definitely dynamic. And if you were to double tap tight end that late and you were to back, get Likely and Pat Freiermuth right there, I got zero problems. Fall a little bit later, get Dallas Goedert, right? Zero issues with that. That's a strong tight end room as far as I'm concerned for Dynasty.
Love the Goddard 12th rounder. If I haven't gotten anything, JT Sanders 12-12. We talked about him on the last show. Just scrolling back up here, Jacoby Myers 11th, Mooney 11th, Shaheed 11th. Really like those players in that range. Of course, still on Hollywood. Just didn't even really get a chance to do anything this year. We'll see what happens in the playoffs. And then Cedric Tillman at 10-10. I mean, I'm probably driving that ADP up. Excuse me.
He's not even in the sleeper ADP, bro. You just pull him in out.
I mean, you got to search. You literally type Tillman in the search.
250.
Yeah.
And I pull him up, and then everybody's in the mock, so they see me pulling him up.
Yeah.
And so if I'm not in there, maybe he goes a little later. To me, honestly, I love Cedric Tillman. He almost made the must buy at every position list. Like, had 3 great games in there, had a snow game, then got concussed and was out for the rest of the season. That's
don't love that.
Slightly concerning, but they also weren't very good and competitive at that point. So why not bring this back? But the thing with Cedric Tillman is what he does, what he has that almost any of the rest of these guys outside of AD Mitchell could certainly be that, but there's some things that he has to figure out first. Quarterback, other wide receivers, and himself. Cedric Tillman is built like a number one, and what he was doing and how he was playing is what was tantalizing with him coming out and how he was built and playing in Tennessee. And that's what Cedric Tillman brings to the table for me. 6'3", 215, pretty fast, physical, can kind of get it done. Had huge games as soon as Amari Cooper was out of there and his number was called. This guy was just. Yeah, obviously, Watson got hurt. Winston was in there, and they were just chucking it all over the place. But if we could get a calming semi-presence in there that could just be mediocre, I think Cedric Tillman just oozes everything I want out of the late round pick here.
Yep, absolutely. And, coming out, like you said, coming out of college, we saw it in college, right? I mean, his teammate Jalen Hyatt got drafted, I think, either right before him or right after him. I think they were consecutive picks. Hyatt won the Blitnikoff that year, right? And Tillman just kind of came into the league, and he's really been quiet, and he's been suppressed and stuck behind. And he came out and got his number called and put on a show. I mean, he was a buy. He was a buy right before then, concussed and out, and now his ADP is telling you he is still a buy. So get on it.
Yeah, He's in every trade that I'm trying to pull off if he's on your team.
Oh yeah.
And then
he's thousands.
Yeah. Then we kind of get into Marvin Mims is another guy at 1204 who's a lot of in my queue pretty much automatically. Once we get into that 12th round, I'll click him. Now we're into the area where we're into pick your poison with your backup running backs. There's Tank Bigsby at 1205. We mentioned Etienne. You can kind of corner that backfield for pretty cheap, which I like that. Tank's been good. Etienne's been good. Then we have the Marshawn Lloyds, the Corums, the Jalen Wrights, the Ray Davises, Braylon Allen, Garendo, Miller, Mason, Algier, Estime. Get out of here with Zamir White right now. Jerome Ford. A lot of backup running backs that mix in here that are very, very interesting pieces, probably rise or fall. Some people just like to take other people's. I can go either way. If I have a guy, then of course, if I have Bijan, Algier's probably elevated. If I have Brees, Braylon Allen's probably elevated. If I have Josh Jacobs, maybe Marshawn Lloyd's a little elevated. Corum, Kyron, maybe a little more elevated. Some people disagree with that strategy. I don't.
Jalen Wright's just a fun swing.
And but is Mostert going to hang around and look at
he's 32.
Look at the time that A-Chain's missed throughout the first two seasons. He's missed some time here and there, and
he's in the beach. It's probably even cheaper than that, but
yeah. And 13th round Jalen Wright for sure. I mean, that's just a fast,
just fun,
twitchy player.
Yeah.
Who was great in college.
I expect to see his usage this last year a little higher,
especially
when it was. But maybe it was just didn't know the system.
That's for sure an alarming thing. I mean, he didn't get a lot of playing time, and then when he did get some playing time, he didn't get very many touches.
Right.
But
but that's why his value is where it is.
Take a gamble.
Right. It helps suppress some value.
Yeah.
Right.
And it could be a myriad of things that we have no idea exactly what it was. And Mostert's a good player, and they missed time. We thought we'd see some right, and a lot of things. I mean,
they
Dolphins
finally even brought Wilson in, instead of Wright to give him. They never really gave him anything.
The Dolphins,
but it's a good time to buy low on that offense in general. Right, every player
just
Waddle
had a season that nobody expected out of any part or piece of it. Right, so kind of is what it is. So
there was one player that I wanted to go back up to, Jaylen Warren. Is very intriguing to me right now. I have a feeling they're probably going to bring in a running back. I don't know what kind of draft capital they're going to spend on that, or if they're going to bring in a free agent. I highly doubt they bring back Najee. But if Jaylen Warren gets starter touches, that's really good value.
Yeah, he's one that gets clicked on the Q button, and I never pull the trigger. I always kind of find somebody else to take there, but for that exact reason, he is certainly interesting because Najee's out of there. Warren's a restricted free agent, I believe. The Steelers that don't care what anybody else thinks, they're probably going to put some capital on a running back, right?
Yeah.
But Warren's been good, man. You can't slide on Warren and you can't hate on Warren. And at 1104, probably worth the gamble there. Yeah, I think you're onto something. So I like that. Good recall. Let's finish up this show. I'll just name a couple guys I kind of like here a little later, and then you can, if you got any follow-ups, go for it.
Jaylen Warren is a restricted free agent.
All right. I like Malik Washington, super late. He's like 15th round. Wandale, super late, 15th round. Jordan Whittington, 16th round. Like that guy a lot. We don't know what Cooper Kupp's future is going to be there, and that guy plays really hard when he's out there, and they've been doing a great job drafting receivers. Theo Johnson, as far as a tight end, 14th round Theo Johnson, like give me that.
Yeah,
he looked kind of interesting out there. Rashad Bateman, I mean, having a great season. Pop Douglas is forever and always a guy that I'm going to keep continuously drafting at 1308. So those are just some names that really popped up for me. Derek Carr still hanging around at 14 in the 14th round sometimes. And Daniel Jones, Justin Fields at 1201 I'll take the swing on those kind of guys at that point. Right.
Yeah. I'm buying Fields and Jones everywhere I can get them.
Yeah. Same. I like that. I like Fields at the value he is, 12th round. And I like,
can't be buying Daniel Jones. No one's going to like that.
You don't have to like it.
Hit us in the comments.
14-12 Daniel Jones. I mean, I'll take that all day. I mean, what if he comes in here and plays for the Vikings next season for real and has a decent season? Like, I mean, McCarthy's had another surgery. I don't know if he's 100%. I don't know if he's grasping everything. I have no idea. We're presuming that McCarthy's just going to come in there and be the guy. We don't know. Maybe they take 6-8 games with because McCarthy, from what I understand, it's not like he was practicing and getting any reps. He just hurt and had 2 surgeries. So you haven't even really, you got the summer and then you haven't really been able to, he obviously was sitting there and in the meetings and all those other things, I'm presuming, but you haven't really gotten to see exactly what's going on. And, for that reason, I think that they should bring back Sam Darnold for a year and just let McCarthy be there. And so that you can physically see him progressing and playing the backup running scout, doing everything he needs to do throughout the offseason to see what you have in this guy. Because he just went 14-2.
Yeah,
but
and you're just going to let him walk.
Those last 2.
Yeah. But I know it's just
poor Sam. Those are the worst outcome he could have had.
Well, it was. It's just he's still going to get plenty of money and he's going to get another shot somewhere.
It would have been all he had to do was not suck so bad.
Yeah,
man, he's still going to get $35 million a year for a couple of years, probably
on his laurels.
Yeah, Rico Dowdle's another one, 13-10.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Free agent. See where he ends up. Big running back class, but the free agent class isn't great. So we'll see if he can carve out a role. I thought he was really good at the back half of the season for the Cowboys.
It's annoying how much Casey likes Rico Dowdle. He can't help. He always got his name in your mouth.
Well, he was great at the back half of the season.
Yeah.
Started pretty much every week. He's getting you 10, 12, 15, 16 points. So those are the guys that I'm gonna be annoying with some shit like that where I'm this guy's been pretty freaking decent.
I'm paying that price for him. Why not? It's nothing. It's scraps.
Yeah.
If you ain't first, you're last.
That's right. Nobody wants guys that score kind of decent points when you might need somebody and they're injured and they just want.
We're trying to rebuild, bro.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, man. You got anything else for us? Elijah Moore is another one.
Yeah, keep your eye on him.
Played pretty decent throughout this season.
Close mustaches.
This is 18th round.
Skyrocketing mustaches. That would be a.
Yeah, we're
fire.
Be right on that. Get right on that, and we'll bring some of these back for that show for sure. Josh Palmer is another one that I like. Super late.
Andre Yoshivis in the 16th. That's a good one. TX.
Sean Tucker's kind of look good when he gets a chance.
Sean Tucker.
Michael Wilson
gets forgotten about. I like that. Thielen in the 18th.
Thielen.
He still looked like he could get open.
Panthers killed me, man. If Evan Ingram leaves.
Thielen got me good in the championship week. What a son of a bitch.
I like Strange and
you got to get Strange
and the Schoonmaker down there. Schoonmaker, Luke's for the Cowboys too. Backup tight ends, stash him, baby.
Yep,
stash him.
Absolutely.
Who's Noah Gray?
Noah Gray, yeah, he's probably a little further up there. I wasn't looking for him, but he had some big 18th round.
Yeah. That's not, these are the kind of players that are going to they increase the value of your team, and at the end of the day, that's what you're looking for, right?
Yeah.
So even if they're pieces,
points and get Jacoby Myers.
Yeah, that's right. All right, let's wrap this up.
Cool.
This is a little market assessment for your Dynasty Superflex tight end premium drafts. We have compiled all this ADP with all of you listeners, so we appreciate you guys. Free Discord listeners, so be sure you go check that out in the link. Free T-shirt giveaway in the link, so go check that out. Give us 5-star reviews. You can enter for free T-shirt giveaways. We're gonna be doing that at least once a month, so make sure you're getting in on that. $5 holler if you want an extra episode. $10 holler if you want a roster review. You come check all that over on the Patreon. So we got more content, and then we have the actual ADP available for you, and then we have rankings: wide receiver, running back, quarterback, tight end. We'll have rookie rankings as they come about. And if you want to be in the mocks, your best crack is to at least join the free Discord, and then if not, follow us on the Twitters at the FF Dynasty, because we got a bunch of, we're gonna be cranking some stuff out over there, and
we're gonna tweet,
and we're throwing mock links out there too to get some of the, it's nice to get a little public involved, John Q
absolutely.
Public.
Jump in those
we don't want to think tank or group think or whatever the regression.
Please God.
Coors Light.
All right, we will we'll be back with or without mustaches. I don't know.
The group thing, you can't have just we can't have just educated people listening to us in the ADP. We got to skew it. We got to get the general.
Yeah.
Yep.
The residual rebuilder.
Yeah.
Build your whole channel off rebuilding.
Yeah.
Well, our rebuild videos don't do that well because our target audience don't watch those as much because they want to win.
Yeah. Well, we'll be doing some rebuilding videos here soon, though.
We will.
For your
They
pleasure.
won't do as
For
well
your
as the
pleasure.
other ones.
Hit us up, Ends.
All right. We'll catch you next time.
Peace.